I just got finished with watching Arcane Season 2 Act 2 for a second time, and I have a lot of thoughts on where the show might be heading, my absolute praise, and my many criticisms, which I wasn't expecting. This is also going to be a different style of video than the one that came out a couple days ago, because I mentally and physically cannot put myself through that again when I have so much other work I have to do. So this is going to be more of a mini recap review of Act 2, and kind of the things I liked most about it, but also the things that have me pretty concerned for how it's gonna end. I don't really know what I can say about it that isn't spoiler ridden, so I guess if you want to know about my spoiler-free opinion, it's amazing. Go watch the show, come back when you've seen it. So the first thing that I absolutely loved about these 3 episodes was the connection between Jayce and Isha. I really, really loved the big sister, little sister dynamic they had going on there, and Savika, even the really oldest sister. So Jayce was acting sort of the middle child. I think a little bit of it is missed because of the time skip between Acts 1 and Act 2, kind of like what happened in Season 1. But at least it's not like in Season 1, where there was one of the main criticisms with Jayce and Echo, that big bridge fight scene, where they had this whole thing like, oh yeah, we were once best friends, and it's an awesome scene and really cool to watch. But Jayce and Echo in Act 1 didn't interact at all, so they kind of have to explain their backstory through this flashback music sequence, and they do that a little bit with Isha as well at the very end when she's about to make her sacrifice. But we also got plenty of time to see the connection that Jayce and Isha have made, though I do kind of wish they had a little bit more time before to see them become good friends, because you get that little bit at the end of Act 1 where Jayce kind of curls up to defend her, but it's still great. You get to see them being buddy-buddy, being friends, and dyeing her hair, and just a great dynamic. I really love seeing them both together. I also really like what they did with quite a few of the side characters. I think what they did with Sallow is actually, that's the best thing they could have done, because his story didn't really have much where else to go. Did Shula even show up? I don't think she did. But as one of the only surviving council members now, he's just wallowing in his own sorrow and doesn't really know where to go. And then Lest, who did make a comeback, I wasn't expecting her to be back again, telling him about this miracle healer. And then at the end of episode 5, we see those legs walking across the floor, and like, oh, who could that be? And they unveil the hood. It's like, oh, it's Sallow. Oh yes, the metal goes over the most injured parts of the body when they're healing. Like, oh yes, of course it's Sallow. But he's also the perfect character to use for that situation, because it only been a couple days since Sallow had been healed, and his personality did a complete 180. There's no remnant of that egomaniacal man in there. So I think he was a great character to use as a hint, like, oh, well, Victor is healing people and helping people, but there is definitely something wrong with them. They are not acting like themselves at all. Because with Huck, he was kind of a scared little man. You could see how he could turn a new leaf that way, but with Sallow, he is such a piece of shit. Something seems weird here. Why is he acting like this? I also really like what they're doing with Victor and Jayce. I think the mystery of what's really going on with either of these characters has been very intriguing. Victor definitely turning more and more into this Jesus-like figure, and Jayce coming back this deranged, hex tech infused, like the gemstone that he wears in his bracelet is fused into his wrist now, and completely with no remorse just kills Sallow and then goes on to kill Victor, seeing all these visions of these void-like entities. I don't know what the hell he saw in there. I don't know what the hell happened to Hyra and Echo, but that mystery is definitely keeping me enthralled. I just kind of wish that they didn't want to spoil the skin that's based on this design. I think it's going to have to launch with no voice lines, right? Because that's going to just spoil everything. I feel very vindicated with Singe, because it's long been a theory now, not just that he was going to be Oriana's father, but potentially that he might be retconned into being Corrin Revek, which is the current League of Legends canon for Oriana's father. We even see him in Convergence. So the fact that he is now Dr. Revek, they didn't call him Corrin, so it could be, you know, Corrin Revek still exists out there somewhere, but I think that would be weird, because I'm gonna be paraphrasing Oriana's lore a bit here. If I remember correctly, Corrin tried to save her by slowly replacing bits and pieces of her body with machinery to save her from her illness, until eventually she is just a complete robot at this point. That is not the story they're going with. Singed here. Oriana's dead. Like, she's just a dead child sitting in this vat, and Singe is doing everything in his power to stop the corpse from withering and bring her back to life. Like, he's trying to cure death. And I think that was a great scene, not just because it was fun for the lore revelations. We even got to see Deckard's head just sitting in the jar there, but it also was great because Caitlyn seeing Singe, how obsessed that he had become with trying to save his loved one, or rather refusing to let go of his loved one and doing all these horrible, unspeakable things in the name of that love. She kind of saw the parallel, like, oh damn, I'm doing the exact same thing. I'm becoming just as much of a monster as this guy is. And I just love that we got to see more of Singed in general, because I just think he's a really great character. And I think the lore side of Singe has always been my favorite. The gameplay is too iconic. There's no way they're going to be able to mesh those two together. And as much as I love the new skin, it's very faithful to the design. It just doesn't match the League of Legends character that is Singed. I thought of that immediately when I saw Singed. just kind of leaving the Victor commune, and he's just kind of slowly waddling out of there. Like, yeah, that's what Singe would probably look like if he was in League of Legends. And I think the last big positive I do want to talk about, it's kind of a mixed positive, and that's Warwick. Some of you fellas might not know that Warwick is one of my absolute most favorite champions in League of Legends, my actually second highest mastery champion in the game. And I think what they did with him mostly was amazing. I was very worried that with all these teasers at the end of every episode in Act 1, they were going to have it so that Warwick was only going to show up at the very end of the entire season. Like, they're going to have that last second teaser at every episode until episode 6, and boom, here's Warwick. So I was very surprised to see that this entire act was almost centered around the reconnection of Vander and Vi and Jinx coming back together as a family. That felt so vindicating. I swear there was so many fan arts of that years ago, just Warwick, Vi, and Jinx hugging it out, and we actually got that in the show. Like, it was... oh my god, pulled at my heartstrings. And I love they didn't reveal it too quickly either. Even when they showed Vander actually recognizing Powder at the very end of episode 4, they didn't immediately jump back into it. They still left that whole episode 5 to build that back up again, so we can have Jinx and Vi reconnect a bit as well. So we can have that focus on the 3 of them trying to reconnect in the 6th episode. And I thought that was just very well handled. And I think they also did a lot of subtle nods of showing Isha bonding with Vander as well. So when you get that ultimate sacrifice, not only are you sad about Isha, you're sad about Vander as well, because they had a bond together. It's like you're killing a loved one. It's so sad. I think in the first 2 episodes as well, they did a very, very good job of making him have this terrifying presence. All the sound design and the camera work, having those glowing red eyes and canisters in the background, are so menacing and so brutal too. Like, he eviscerates a lot of those built open guards. There's blood splatters everywhere. I'm surprised I wasn't watching a Mortal Kombat fatality. And then making him immune to Hex Tech as well. Seemingly, I don't know how it's going to work at the end of the episode. I think the one drawback that I do kind of feel is his design, weirdly enough. It is basically verbatim the Warwick from League of Legends, except he doesn't have his tail and his face is more wolf man than werewolf. I'm not sure if they're actually going to end up in the direction of the classic Warwick that we know from League of Legends, or if they're going to keep him more of this kind of wolf man inspired character. It makes sense why they did. They want to make him at least look slightly recognizably like Vander. I'm just worried because I know that Riot said some champions are going to have their stories end in Arcane, and to me, it's always the non-human characters that die, or always the side characters. So if any champion is going to die in this show, I think it's gonna be Warwick, and I have concerns he's not gonna end up in the same way that we know him from League. And I really like the one we have from League, so I guess we'll have to wait and see on that. But I think what might be my favorite thing that they did with him was the flashback sequences. We got to see him and younger Silco and Felicia, Vi and Powder's mom, but to that end, I think that makes the bond even better, because he knew about these kids since they were born, so no wonder he adopted them right on the spot. And I think that was just wonderful to see, and I love seeing the backstory. Unscarred Silco was so weird and uncanny, but I still kind of loved it. So now that I've said my praises, I do want to get some of my criticisms and concerns out for how I think the last 3 episodes are going to end the show. Because in case you don't remember, Arcane is ending after this. Like, they had no plan for season 3 ever. It was always designed to be a 2-season show, and that's it. Some champions are having their entire character arcs wrapped up by the end of this thing. And to that end, I think especially in episode 4, you could really feel the pacing restraints. That opening music video is very cool, and I love those opening music videos, having those artists express different styles, but has become a bit of a pattern. I'm glad they didn't do it in episode 5 and 6, because from episode 1, 3, and 4, that opening music video of the montage kind of jumping through the lore very quickly becomes a bit confusing. A lot of people don't realize that Cross and Madame Margot are dead because they just died in the montage, and I think this montage was also used to cover the time gap between Act 1 and Act 2. We don't know how long it's been since those 2 acts. I assume not a full year, because the characters haven't visibly aged that much, but it still makes it a bit confusing, kind of requires it to have a mandatory second watch or even third watch to understand what's happening, I think. I think my other biggest criticism is there might actually be too many characters, and I think that's no better exemplified than with Maddie and Loris and Steb, I guess, who Steb didn't even show up here. Loris was only in the background for the very start of episode 5, and Maddie disappeared by the end of episode 4. I already had my concerns with this Enforcer trio, that they were not going to play a very significant role, even though they were hyping them up a lot, and it might be turned around a bit. If you guys remember in Season 1, Echo only had brief glimpses in both Act 1 and Act 2, but then had a much bigger character arc in Act 3, so there is still a full act left to go through. They might have some sort of redemption. I really want to know what Loris's even whole deal is, but trying to juggle all these characters, if I had to pick between the random Enforcer trio that we just got introduced to this season, or the complete character arcs of what happened to Mel and Vi and Jinx and Victor and Singed and Jayce and Warwick, like, there's so many characters already that you can't give everyone the spotlight. And that's also my worry with LeBlanc, because we know that LeBlanc is showing up, and I really like that scene, by the way. All the scenes with Mel in episode 5 were phenomenal. Having that fake out with Kino was so good, but I have worries that LeBlanc is gonna again take up more space, add another character to the pool. That's just gonna dilute everything and not give all the other characters we were already introduced to the proper screen time to finish off their character arcs, because they have nowhere else to go after this. Arcane's ending. My last big criticism that I have is ties into LeBlanc, because I've long said now I actually didn't really want LeBlanc or Swain or Camille or Renata to show up in this show, because I want to see what Mbessa could do. Mbessa was set up at the very end of Season 1, but she had this menacing presence to her. Just being in the room, you could tell she was a threat, and so I was excited to see what she could do in this season, and so far, I haven't really felt that. It's hard not to compare her to Silco. I shouldn't be comparing them because they're two completely different characters, but at least with Silco, he fumbled sometimes, but he was also allowed to win. Mbessa is just fumbling the bag over and over and over again. She lost the fight to Warwick. Rictus died. Caitlyn lost her trust. She's probably gonna have Singe running about and lost him. Silco, even when he was at his lowest, still felt like he was in control of the situation. With Mbessa, it doesn't feel like she has that much control over anything that's happening, that she thinks she's way smarter than she actually is, and I think that's no better exemplified with the twist back in Act 1. Saw that coming a mile away, like no duh, Mbessa was behind everything. I think it's just, to me so far, Mbessa has been a bit too predictable and hasn't had many instances to show off why she is a threat, and I think because of that she hasn't been as nearly of an engaging villain as Silco was back in Season 1. Again, there's still an entire act to see where that's even going. I just hope that they bring it back around, because with them pushing Mbessa so much, putting her in every single Riot game that's ever existed, making her a league champion, giving her a novel, giving her a legendary skin on release. Like, they're really trying to push Mbessa as this big new thing for the League of Legends universe, and I think that would just absolutely suck if by the end of it, she just wasn't even that great of a villain. But those are just my thoughts, so what do you fellas think of Arcane Season 2 Act 2 so far? I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I didn't talk about in this video, and it was very unscripted, so I don't know if my points got across too well, so let me know if you like this style of content or not. If you really don't like it, then I probably won't do this for Act 3. But I'm trying to make sure I can at least get some Arcane-related videos out to you guys without destroying myself in the process. But I guess that's about all I have to say, so I guess I'll hopefully see you all in the next video.